Okay, this week there was a conference of an organisation you've probably never heard of. It might have been last week actually, which has just taken us this long to get round to doing the interview. To do of a new organisation that you've never heard of called Rewiring Aotearoa. The reason that the conference caught my eye, I have to say, was because the Minister of Energy, Simon Watts, who's also the Minister of Climate Change and the new Minister of Local Government, um, attended or at least commented on the agenda of rewiring Aotearoa, and noted that it was a possibility. I always worried when ministers say it's a possibility, but a possibility that they might at some time in the future, oh, there are those words again, look at providing an incentive for New Zealanders to apply solar panels to their homes, generate the electricity, and also then be able to sell that back to the network. Now, I've always wondered, there was such a policy, oh gosh, as I remember, about 10 years ago, where you were subsidised for the solar panels that you could put on your roof, and that if you generated excess electricity for the needs of your household, you were able to sell it back to the grid. Somewhere along the line, that policy got junked and jettisoned, and my understanding is that there was lobbying against it from certain electricity companies, from certainly the gentailers, and also from Treasury, who were pointing out that the government owns a good number of these gentailers and they pay a very sizable profit and dividend, which makes the government coffers work so much better. But nevertheless, the policy, or the idea at least, is back on the agenda, and the chief executive of that particular organisation, Rewired Aotearoa, joins us now. His name is Mike Casey. Welcome to the show, Mike.
G'day, Mike. Thanks for having me on. It's a beautiful day in Cromwell.
Well, it is, but it was snowing beforehand, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was snowing beforehand. Now it's a crystal clear day. We're just up the road from you in Mount Pisa.
I didn't know
And
that. Yeah, no, I didn't know that at all.
yeah,
Now you've become quite the darling of the woke, I have to say, because you've
well,
electrified your cherry orchard.
I hope I hope I become the darling of everybody else too, because I'm just at the point now where I just think this is such an economic slam dunk, and I just want to, yeah, really see if the rest of New Zealand can take advantage of it.
Okay, so it's just to explain, Mike has electrified your entire cherry orchard. Now, how many hectares are we talking about here?
We're talking 6 hectares, 9,300 trees, about 25 kilometres of cherry trees.
Okay, is that that's obviously an economic unit. I mean, and cherries they're almost sort of little bits of red gold, aren't they, at the moment in terms of the New Zealand economy and the horticulture sector?
We get about 80 tons, probably about 65 of that is export quality that heads overseas to mainly China and Taiwan. And yeah, real delicacy over there. We've got a market, and it's just awesome to see the horticulture industry in New Zealand growing at the moment. Something that Todd McClay wanted to see happen, and us in the cherry game down here in Central Otago, we're holding up our end of the deal.
No, I mean, there's a massive conversions, or has been over the last decade, anyhow, towards cherry farms and units. Listen, just on that, you guys don't seem to work very hard. I mean, I go on my bike ride all the time, and you're not doing any work at the moment at all. You've got these wonderful people from Vanuatu and places like that who are doing your trimming, and you're really only busy for about what, 3 months a year? Have I got that wrong? I'm sure I have.
Well, I mean to no, I mean to be fair, yeah, most of our work is congested into that harvest, well, pretty much from spring we're frost fighting right through to summer when we're harvesting, and after harvest you get into pruning, and then yeah, one of the great reasons things for cherries is I love this area of New Zealand and I love skiing, and the one thing that we get is a bit of time off over winter to go and enjoy that aspect of this beautiful region that we live in. But yeah, for me, I mean, we don't. We hire a couple of people in, locals from town, from Cromwell, that come out and do a lot of stuff and help us out. And my business partner Ewan, he's also full time on the farm as well. So Yeah, but this is a good time of year for us, Michael. I'm not going to lie. This is the time where the sun is still shining. It's still pretty warm before that inversion layer kicks in, and get a chance to decompress a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's no surprise, therefore, that cherry orchards have become very popular as a form of income and horticulture in our region. Okay, let's go to the next bit here. Rewiring Aotearoa. You've now made a national organisation out of it. You've created a position for yourself of chief executive. I'm interested to know, who are you and who funds you?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I actually wasn't the original founder of Rewiring. I sort of got invited to become the CE, which is pretty exciting. But we're an NGO that's fully philanthropically funded. So all our funders are on our website, but essentially it's a few people around New Zealand, the likes of Stephen Tyndall and the Tyndall Foundation, Brian Cartman, Mel from over in Queenstown. We've got Ors Herzl, who is a recent new citizen of Takapuna, who comes from San Francisco from Google. And yeah, it's just a whole bunch of people getting together to truly try and figure out how to fix New Zealand's energy system. That's the
And
big thing
your
it's all
argument
about.
is
And me
that
being
we
a
should 100% electrify, and that we should
not
get rid of all all fossil fuels, our reliance upon, and go completely electricity. Is that right?
Yeah, not overnight. Like I think we have to be really pragmatic here. But the way that I see it at the moment is fossil fuels in New Zealand. We have some of the most expensive in the world, and about 75% of our economy runs on energy that's sourced from overseas. The idea of transforming our economy to run off electrons or energy that we can create ourselves is pretty compelling. And that's right down to the farm and the household level as well, where the cheapest energy a household or a farmer is ever going to get now is energy that they can create themselves. And we can't create diesel, but we are actually pretty good at creating electrons, and the technology now is available to make it really quite economic to do so. So, my whole thing now is, I'm a big man of free will. I want people to be able to choose what it is they want to do. I'm not here to force anyone, but just provide all the information and hopefully get some of the barriers sorted out that exist at the moment to allow the people to do this easily, should they choose to.
Well, that's the thing that's fascinated me, because we are also living in the so-called Golden Triangle of Queenstown, Wanaka, and Cromwell. It's one of the fastest growing, along with the Selwyn district regions in New Zealand. There's massive numbers of new builds going up, but very few proportionately are built with solar panels on their roof. Why is that?
I think it's largely an education piece. We're really far behind Australia. I think Australia now is sitting at something like 40% rooftop solar penetration, and they've got the cheapest energy in the world coming off those solar panels. And I think in New Zealand, we're sitting at about 3%. I think this region
Oh,
that
that's
we're in,
pathetic.
Mike's a little bit higher
Mm,
at about 5 or 6%. But
mm.
the big thing here is, I think you were right with what you were saying, is when I started electrifying my orchard and putting some solar panels up to power the machines on my farm, going to Wellington, and Wellington was telling me that solar energy doesn't have a strong role to play in New Zealand's energy system, and I was just ripping my hair out. I just couldn't believe it, because it was by far the cheapest energy I could get. Like on my farm now, even when I finance it on my mortgage, it's 7 cents a kilowatt hour compared to 35 cents a kilowatt hour from the grid, compared to about $1 a kilowatt hour, which is what you could do if you generated it with diesel. So it's just such a remarkable opportunity for the little fella of New Zealand to, take a bit of energy sovereignty on board, and look after themselves a bit better when, the energy system of New Zealand hasn't been doing that for so long.
Now, as part of your, if you like, your manifesto, your agenda that was released last week, you talk about subsidising the adoption of solar panels and of battery, because you need both, obviously. Um, have you worked out what kind of subsidy that you're advocating for the government to provide, and what the costing of that might be, Mike?
So I'm not. I'm not a massive fan of subsidies, in all honesty, especially when it comes to solar, namely because the economics stack up so beautifully for it to be already really economical for the customer. And we're seeing households in our area getting 5, 6 year complete capital returns through savings on their solar systems. So it is pretty remarkable. One thing that doesn't exist at the moment is subsidies or any form of pricing incentive for batteries. So if you put a battery in your home, that takes a massive amount of burden off the grid. You essentially remove your home from peak periods when you have a battery. And there's just not really much of a reward for that at the moment. So, in lieu of fixing our energy system and creating new tariffs, one possibility to help build out the cheapest energy system in the world for New Zealanders would be to instead give a pricing signal through some form of subsidy for batteries, kind of like what's happened in Australia. Long story short, we build our poles and wires for those peak congestion periods. So the more batteries that get installed at homes, the more homes get removed from those peak congestion periods, the lower everyone's power bills become. And so that's really what that subsidy argument is all about. But being a bit more of a purist, I'd rather see the Electricity Authority actually fix the tariffs once and for all so that you're rewarded for the investment that you make in a battery and your own resilience. You're rewarded for taking your home off the grid, and even rewarded more if you push power back to the grid during congestion periods and take your neighbour off the grid. That is how you build out the cheapest energy system in New Zealand.
And
So
but as I said to you, and that you would have heard my introduction, I know that there's been some pushback from Jen Taylor's from Treasury, an argument. We need people to buy expensive electricity because that then creates the incentives for particularly government-owned producers of electricity to keep on investing in it and then returning a dividend to the government. Do you see a
yeah,
political aspect to this?
oh, 100% I do. And I think at the end of it, you and your listeners might call me a hopeless optimist, but I feel like the energy system is now at a point where it's so unaffordable for our people that the political will is now there to figure out how to change things for the better. What I'm really focused on is when you look at the power bills of New Zealanders, half the power bill is the generation of our large assets. Half the power bill is the poles and wires, that on the bill, which is what Aurora, our utility company down here, charges us. And we've got to figure out how to solve both those problems. And, right now, if power was free from the Clyde Dam, it still wouldn't get to us cheaper than our own rooftop solar. And so therefore, I'm a massive advocate for change and just figuring out ways to scale this up fast.
Okay. Now, forgive me. You would be singing, I would imagine. I would imagine you're singing a song that would be almost siren-like to the green side of politics in this country. Have you noticed that there is a political divide and those who are receptive to your message and those who are not?